Okay. Hello, welcome to the Analyzing Game, the What's of Kickoff workshop. We've got a bunch of people here who know a lot about analyzing games, so let's just get right into it with some introductions.
Hey everyone, I'm Karthik. I've been doing first for a while. I was the lead mentor for Team 1114 from 2004 to 2016. At that time, we won some stuff. It was pretty cool. I always focus on strategy and strategic design. So at Kickoff, that's kind of like, what I love. And it's like breaking down the game and like trying to figure out what to do. And the whole concept of strategic design, which is, forget about designing your robot, but figuring out what your robot wants to do and optimizing yourself and your robot's abilities based on the game and trying to maximize all that sort of stuff. In my day job, there's some boring stuff there on the slide. I used to design all the games for Vex. So from every Vex game played from 2006 to 2018, I was either the primary or one of the lead designers of. And now I work for First Canada, just kind of helping with the digital season this year and what virtual programs are going to be like, and also, strategy and analytics, all the good stuff.
Hey there, I'm Adam Hurd. Also been doing First forever, not quite as long as Karthik. Bulk of my time, I was the lead mentor for 973, did that for 12 years. My family and I moved up to the Bay Area, I guess about 2 years ago now, and I've been with 2D4 and then now also 2135 in that time. Day job, I work at what was formerly Auras Health, which is kind of known in the First community now because there's just a stupid number of high-quality alumni. And now it's Johnson & Johnson Robotic and Digital Solutions, mechanical engineering manager there. Really cool robot stuff. One day it'll be public. Excited to share that with the world when we get there.
Hi, Austin Haddox. I've been doing First for 8 years. I started a student with 2085 and mentored them for 2 years after I graduated. I moved and worked with 6 and 78, a scouting and strategy mechanical mentor. I focus mainly on game and robot analysis during competition. And I'm doing statistics and economics at UC Davis, and I work as a senior analyst at North Bay School Insurance Authority.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lucien. How are y'all? I'm the Robonauts head coach. I've been around the Robonauts for over 2 decades. Let's do it that way. Been the head coach / lead mentor for a couple decades. I'm also at NASA, the Robotics Alliance Project program lead. Most of you all know that because of the RAP program, because of our efforts at providing NASA grants for VEX teams and for FIRST teams. So when you hear that a FIRST team is a NASA team, most of those teams come out of funding from the Robotics Alliance Project, and the person who heads that program is our dear Dave Lavery. I'm also the chief engineer on the human rovers for the Moon and Mars. One of the rovers, the space exploration vehicle you see up in the upper right-hand corner out at White Sands Test Facility, that's a prototype that is a pressurized rover, and then we are designing and developing a unpressurized rover for the Moon and Mars that the crew members will have in their will be in their spacesuits when they drive around, just like Apollo. I've done a lot of things in FIRST, regional, helping with the Lone Star Regional, been drive coach, done all kinds of things. Casey and Billy are my 2 kids. They're both on the Robonauts, and currently, robot-loving people as you are, Casey's team is the #1 seed at the Galveston VEX tournament, and Billy is on the #2 seed. So there should be some excitement this afternoon. But it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Lucien, didn't you win a little award in the spring?
Did I win what? Oh, no.
Did you win a little award?
We all won an award. The award we won was because I hung out with some really great people, and they honored me with the WFA, but it's all because of the smart people I hang out with. Thanks for pointing that out, Karthik.
Oh, of course, buddy.
Alrighty. And then I'm Kevin. I'm the moderator for this workshop. 4 years in first. You'll have to forgive me. I was not alive when most of these people started. I have 2 years in FTC and I'm a
Thanks.
1678 student for another 2 years. And currently I am the on backend leadership, which just means I'm in charge of making the server serve things. So moving forward into the content of the workshops, Lucien's going to run us through quickly the 118 process before and in the days following kickoff, and then we're going to go into some more free-form discussion on the subject. So turning it over to Lucien.
Thanks, Kim. Yeah, just real quickly, we have a kickoff weekend that is like everyone else, and I've done this presentation before, and I just want to quickly go through it and just kind of share with everyone that we kind of the thing that I really like about our kickoff weekend is that we make it really family oriented. Okay, Kevin, let's do a rapid fire of this presentation. So we have 4 goals, and we try to touch on all 4 of those goals during our weekend. That's basically educating the students and mentors in engineering, the community. Competitive team is all about our robot wheel list by the end of the week, and that grow and nurture the Robonauts family. I think we do a really good job. Next, at the end of the weekend, we're striving to generate this picture over here on the left of our robot wheel, and that's our goal by the end of summer. And on Friday afternoon, the whole team gets together. We clean up the facility. We get ready for all of our families and guests to come in. And then that Friday night, the alumni, who a lot of them are off for college, they come in and we go to a local restaurant and we all hang out together. And that's the mentors and the alumni. And then on Saturday, like all of you, we watched the kickoff from New Hampshire, and here are a couple pictures of the team watching it. So that is the team. Those are parents. Those are kids that are the siblings of the team. And okay, next. And then on Saturday, as soon as we finish with the kickoff, we go into a workout. So we configure the facility for our strategy meetings, and the students go off and have lunch, start strategizing, and mentors do the same. So there's our facility ready to go for our rules review, and we start on our rules review. And this is, I have to give a nod out to Karthik. We really do a lot of what Karthik talks about in his strategy session that he had at championships years and years ago. But that bottom line is key: read the rules, know the rules. And then we just analyze. That's the game analysis. Next. And then we do some spreadsheets that we create. And then right after we do that, before we break for the day, we do a robot can list, everything that a robot can do. Next. And then we have the alumni. Oh, there's our robot can list from this last year. And next. And then we have Alumni Wisdom. We have the alumni from last year. The seniors from last year come in and talk about which kind of share with the team as to maybe the things that they wish they would have done. They read a senior letter, and it's pretty cool atmosphere because they're really attached to the team, but they're off at college. Next. And that's the team. That's them standing up in front of the team. Next. And then we go off, mentors go off and have a mentor dinner, just hang out together. And this is where we define who are going to be the core mentors and support mentors. Next. All day Saturday, our parents have peeled off, made a Home Depot run, and started doing the field build. and just click through those slides. And those are just a couple pictures of parents doing their thing. And then they continue that on Sunday. And when we walk in on Sunday at 1 o'clock, we start sharing our thoughts. So the students and mentors have gone off, thought about the game, and they're like, oh, I think this is important. Just click through the next couple slides, please, Kev. And then we do the game analysis, and there you see the students talking game analysis there. And then we get into this is a really tough couple of hours where we do our Robonauts robot wheel list that eventually shows up on that board. A lot of things are really easy on the board, and then some of the things like this year, they go underneath the control panel or the spinner. That was contentious. And there were some other, where to shoot from was contentious. And I will say whether you score accurately in the 3-point versus just pour them into the 2-point was pretty contentious. And then that's about it. So there's our robot wheel, and it gets transformed into that board right there. And then we're done. Thanks, Kevin.
Alrighty. So now, do people have any just general comments on, other than Lucien, because obviously I think he has refined a lot what his thoughts on what 118 does, but other people have thoughts on how 118 process and any differences that you do.
We got to tell Karthik to unmute. Hey, Karthik.
Karthik, you're muted.
You win the award if you unmute.
Hey, guess what? You can hear me now. And so I said all sorts of really important things, but I can't repeat them at this point. But no, seriously, I was just saying that the 1114 process is like super similar, even down to the timing as the 118 process. Done on Saturday, what gets done on Sunday. I think one of the most important things with Kickoff is we talk a lot about the need for diverse groups, and Kickoff is like a great example for that, because sure, when it comes down to the nitty gritty of like programming a robot, you need some expertise there, and like actually designing the robot, you need some expertise. But when it comes to Kickoff, anyone can contribute, and anyone can kind of break down these sorts of games, and so it's important to try and just give everyone a chance to ruminate on what their thoughts are and what can be effective. And I think it's also important, a lot of complete standstill, but I do think there's some value in looking at, trying to look at the current game and trying to say, okay, this is similar. Which parts of this game are similar to past games that we've played, and what worked then, and what strategies were effective then? Because that's the knowledge we're building off of. Like, if you almost have to think of like the first robotics competition as its own field of study, and we're looking back past precedent to see what kind of goes on there. And so people always wonder, it's like, why are first alums so good at this? Well, the reason they're so good at this is because they have had lots of repetitions with past games, and they understand that sort of stuff. So there's a specific kind of knowledge there that it's really hard to kind of teach. Because like, if you look at it from just like a problem-solving perspective, you're going to come in at it one way, but then other people are just going to have so much institutional knowledge. They're going to be like, no, trust me, like this, we've seen how this has worked in the past. So that's important to drop.
And I just want to highlight Lucien's point of the parents coming in to build the field. I think that is incredibly intelligent, and it's not exactly obvious at face value why that pays dividends down the road. I mean, one, you're getting that field built early without tying up your top mentors and students working on other things, so you can immediately get into programming. And two, anything you can do to get the parents in there and learning the words and invested in some way, so that when students go home later and are talking to them about what they're doing that year and the parents actually understand it, that's actually making the student experience better. And students are going to get more out of their program because it's enabling the parents to be more supportive of their students. So that's killer, and I wish more teams would do that. You see quite a few successful teams do it. I think 1678 does almost the identical model, but that's definitely a pro tip to see.
Yeah, I also want to comment on the fact that you allow every person to speak, and you almost force every person to give their thoughts, because a lot of people, especially if they don't have a vast experience in first, they don't think that they have, I guess, the right to speak, but anyone has the ability to come up with the right idea. Or I might have overanalyzed something and missed a key aspect of the game, or I might have come to a conclusion way faster than I should have. And sometimes it's the people that don't rush to conclusions and don't hyperanalyze that come up with the best solutions. So I think basically telling people, hey, it's your turn to talk, gives them a much better chance of feeling that their voices are heard.
Yeah, and like I just gave this like spiel about the importance of like looking back on past games, but sometimes if you come in with a narrow lens of, well, this is the way it was done in the past, this is the way it needs to be done, it's great to have that outside perspective of someone who's not tarnished from a game from 2013 and be like, well, I have no idea, I wasn't alive in 2013, and like I'm 6, but I would try and do things this way. It's that diversity of thought and diversity. Pardon?
A great example of this exact principle is I think a lot of firsters in 2013 on kickoff day immediately ruled out full court shooting. I certainly did. I was like, maybe we should test it, play with it, but like that's way too hard and it's not going to work well. And that's actually in line with a lot of the presentations that are given about like, go simple, do things you've seen before, stay within your limits. But someone who doesn't have that experience might come in and say, well, like, it's not illegal. Like, it seems like we could do it. Why don't we try it? And there were, quite a few teams that were successful with that strategy that year.
And then the flip side is, you look at the 2020 game, is you had a generation of mentors who grew up on the 2013 game, and so they were like, oh, we can't miss full court shooting this time around. We've got to figure this out. And even as like the math and the physics were telling them, it's like, this shot might not be the most viable at this point. It's like week 5, maybe we should be working on something else. Like, no, we need to get that full court shot. We don't want to be left behind like we were in 2013. So yeah, there's, at some point you've got to trust the history, but at other points you have to trust what's in front of you. And like trying to make that decision, like that's not necessarily a kickoff day decision as we're talking about, but it is something that's interesting to think about.
Kind of going off of the historical perspective here, a question from the chat is, how has your kickoff process and how you analyze the game changed over the years? So obviously, a lot of people have been comparing like past game, talking about how they compare past games to current games. So how has just the progression of time or various games changed how you analyze the game?
I think on a level. Go ahead, Austin. Go ahead, man.
Okay.
No.
I think that the dynamic of dynamic of games has changed drastically in the last few years, and so the game design where they have 2 completely separate tasks is core to games now compared to when and clearly when is defining those core designs of the game and finding the value and assigning the time that it takes. But that's necessarily the way to go when you analyze past games. So when kind of where we were talking about, you look at past games to look and how you analyze games now. It's very different when you try to say how you analyze this game, and this is how you go into 2020. The times are also very different now. And so there's a lot more aspects to the challenges that you have to look at. So there's a lot more like minute details that you worry about.
Yeah. And I think one of our key things, Kevin, that we did several years ago is what's the best auton in the world? What is it going to be? We used to like skip by the auton and not analyze the auton as much as we should have. And then there were some dominating autons throughout the years that we just absolutely missed. And so and our robot couldn't do what those autons did. So we have really, one of the major focuses has been auton. What is the greatest auton going to be? and we often develop our robot around that strategy.
Yeah, for us, I think there's been two changes over the years. Number one, we've slowed down. In the past, I think like going back to, when I started writing these white papers on stuff, we wanted to have something locked in by Sunday night because there weren't as many COTS parts available and lead times were a mess with suppliers. And so like 6 weeks was like a hard constraint. So you needed to lock in on a decision early in order to get to hit the timelines that we wanted to so we could be done early enough to get a lot of practice in. Now, forget about just the out of bag, the no more bag rule world, but just with you're doing less custom making, you're doing a lot more stuff with COTS parts. You have a lot more freedom to kind of say, okay, this is kind of our framework of what we want to establish. And now let's spend like a week prototyping and then we can hone in on a decision. So using prototyping to better inform our decisions. The other one kind of ties into what Lucien was saying about how, the 118 is kind of focused on autonomous modes. When I started doing first, like the ranking systems in first, like it was based on like your opponent's score and it was like really, really nutty. But then from like 2004 to about 2009, it was like very basic, just win matches. And so, you design your robot to win matches. Then over the years, there came in more incentives, whether it be things like co-op, which was for a couple ranking points, and then these 4 ranking point games or these bonus incentives. And all of a sudden, that really changed how you have to design your robot, because designing your robot just to win matches wasn't enough. And so you would have to like focus in on these tasks and be like, okay, which ranking can we use to command the number 1 seed? Which ranking points can we accomplish just as a single robot? Or which ranking points have to be done as a group? You look at the 2017 game, I think a lot of teams, were like, okay, you can win matches on gear. And gears are so easy compared to shooting, but shooting's something that you can get the ranking point on your own, while gears was going to have to be a collaborative effort. Like some people were stupid and thought you could do all the gears on your own, but like if you had any sort of basic analysis, you'd realize that was a collaborative one. So then you realize, okay, that's why the shooter's so important. So it really comes into doing your strategic design, not just around robots that can win matches, but strategic design about robots that can earn the maximum number of rings.
I'd say the biggest change we saw over the years with 973 was transferring from a team that only had 8 to 10 students in a given year to pretty reliably having 25 or so. And I don't think it changes the high level portions of the process. Like we would still go through all the same strategic sessions, but it did require a little more planning and leadership and better communication on how do you actually run kickoff day of. It's really easy to make something inclusive with 8 to 10 people. Like you just have a conversation. It's not that hard. It's significantly harder to keep everyone involved with 25 people, or I think Robonauts is up to like 100 or some crazy number. I don't know where they're at, but much larger group. So I would stress that, make sure you don't just take Karthik's presentation and go, here's the things we need to get done that day. Actually have your student leaders and or mentors that are running that day be aware of how to actually keep everyone engaged. What are the conversations we're going to have? What is the structure of the day? What size groups are we going to break down into? How are they going to come back to the top level and present to everyone else? All that kind of stuff is worth planning out ahead of time and figuring out how that's going to flow.
Yeah, I would, Adam, I would really like to have 118 teams, but 118 students, but they only let me have 60 students. So we had to start the second team. But something that Karthik was going on, when we sit in the circle on kickoff weekend, we talk about no less than 118 times about what is the Einstein robots going to look like. What are the Einsteins? Not what are the Einstein robots going to look like? First and second pick. What is the number 1 seed of that alliance going to look like? And that feeds back into trying to be the number 1 seed at other events. And we're not looking to go into the first event with a 95% robot. We say, strategy-wise, we believe that if we go into our first regional or district event at 80% robot, 80% strategy, and 80% driver performance, we have a good chance to win that district. And then we try to up those levels to 95% plus as we go through the year.
Lucien had a really... Yeah, a really good point there because he's talking about like they spend a lot of time trying to visualize what that Einstein robot looks like. But I think that we might have put the cart ahead of the horse here because I think there's an important discussion that teams need to have prior to kickoff, and it's about goal setting. And Mike Corsetto from 1678 has a really good presentation on this, and we've chatted about this a lot. But a lot is that you need to figure out what your goals are for the team because if your strategic design for an Einstein level alliance captain versus an Einstein level second pick versus a district level second pick are three totally different robots and three totally the process is the same, but what you're going to be trying to achieve with them is very, very different. And so your team needs to be on the same page as like, okay, this is what we think we can do, and understand that there's no shame in going with any of those options because you got to figure out what your resource level is and how you can be successful. um, Adam, like 973 a couple of years ago when, you won the world championship with a robot that couldn't score high, and like there was obviously strategic constraints that went into that and resource constraints behind that decision. And I think it's really, really important for teams to try and identify what they think they need to do to achieve their specific goals. Like if your goal is like, hey, like we would love to, like our goal is like a great season, a successful season to us is qualifying for the provincial championship, and an amazing season is going to the world championship. Well, that's going to be a very different set of goals to an amazing season for us. A great season for us is where we're competitive to win a district event. An amazing season would be competitive to win our division. Like it's totally different there. And so you need to truly understand that because if you come in and you have a team that's on different pages for this, you may have some kids who are envisioning what the Einstein robot's looking like, while other kids on the team are going to be like, well, okay, hold up. We are like a kit bot, and like one mechanism team, like 1 degree of freedom. So how are we going to hit that? But that discussion needs to happen before kickoff day. And lots of time between the previous championship and kickoff. Well, this year there's like, whatever amounts of time like that. But to spend some time honestly and realistically evaluating your resources and what your goals are. And like, a lot of times people will do build it simple and whatever. And that's obviously what I believe in, but also like, don't be afraid to push some boundaries too. Like everything we do in life needs to involve a measure of growth. So it's like, figure out where your boundaries are and then see if you can get like 10% beyond them or 50% beyond them.
Yeah, to add a corollary there a little bit, I think a lot of people run into the misconception that if I want my team to be Einstein caliber in 3 years or 5 years or whatever, I need to start acting like an Einstein team today. And our kickoff goals need to include all of these high-level goals. And there's a couple data points of teams that were able to pull off that route to becoming a top-level team, but they're definitely the exceptions. The fastest route, if you're trying to hit that level of competition in 3-5 years, is definitely not making an Einstein caliber alliance captain, at least robot, the first year in that journey for most teams. Sure, there's exceptions.
And like it's right there, Adam, because it's like, teams think that they have to start acting like an Einstein team. Well, it's like you don't necessarily have to start building an Einstein robot, but you act like an Einstein level team by setting reasonable goals and having a clear and focused strategic plan, because that's the commonality between the Einstein teams. Despite their different levels, there's like a real plan as to what the season is going to look like.
Well, I think one thing also is teams often use define the amount that they can do by their success rather than their success by what they can do. So this is my team when I was a student, 2085. We were final in 2014 and 2015, and we did so by being and using the KOP drive base and building a simple elevator in 2015 and making sure that nothing ever breaks. Teams were very different, so it's a little different now, but we then in 20 said, well, we were the fourth pick on, we want to be finalists on our field. That's our goal. So now we need to build a robot that is going to be that robot on that field. And so we went much more complicated than we ever needed to, because we said, okay, this is where we were, and this is the next step of robots, and that's what we need to be, rather than saying we were at this level by competing and building these simple robots. So let's add 10% to our robot, not let's build a robot that competes 10% better. And I think that those are very different core ideas. And I think when you're trying to get to that level, it's important to keep in mind what made you successful in the first place.
To add a case study to that, there was a team in 2014, I think it was their rookie year, 5136.
Yep.
Their entire robot was just an intake that came down and grabbed the ball. There's a whole other story here of 284 picked us number 1 seed of the regional when we were terrible, and if they hadn't have picked us, they would have picked this team. This team made a robot that arguably almost couldn't do anything if you want to view it through the wrong lens. Karthik and 1678 here picked that team as their fourth at the 2014 champs. Unfortunately, they didn't get a chance to play in the limbs, or fortunately, made it all the way to Einstein finals, but I'm sure Karthik can elaborate more. I'm confident they could have been played, wouldn't have slowed down the alliance at all, and would have done great on the field if so, with a robot that was just stupid simple.
Yeah, and like they differentiated themselves, with because they also had a goalie pole. And so one of the reasons about taking them is taking them off the board. That's just one less goalie pole that was available in the division, And so it was that little piece of differentiation, and they were able to create something like that because they had built so simple. So they had the resources available for that. And like every year, a championship, like these second round picks that help win the championship for alliances, are based on that degree of simplicity and just like they can do something. Like my favorite one for us is in 2012, 11, 14, 2056, we picked Team 4334 out of Calgary. That robot was just like literally this wide. It was just super small. It could pick up 3 balls and shuttle them across the field, put them in the low goal. But by building so small, they were the perfect partner to balance with other teams. They didn't take up much space on the bridge. And realistically, the only way that 1114 and 2056 were going to triple balance together was with a robot that small. And so they were just this. It was like it's like they were built for us, and like their lead high school student at that point, like, that's what his whole plan was. He was like, okay, like we think we could be a real good, like we can win the rookie all-star award because that's like a culture-based award and we can sell the judges on that. And then if we get the championship, we want to be able to pair up with 2 of the best teams in the world. So what can we do to make them better? And that was their whole plan. And it was a great season. And like, in all honesty, like probably should have won a championship.
Yeah, I could not agree more with Adam, Karthik, and Austin. And we have a nice program with Everybot that keeps us grounded on that first weekend because we're going through Everybot. We do the same thing with Everybot, and so we're asking the same question that same weekend: what is the most complementary robot that we could build? And that usually ends up being the Everybot robot wheel list. Being you don't have to go underneath the spinner. We had a debate whether we should shoot high or not, but we thought it was so important to have Everybot load up the ball so you could get the next stage. So that's kind of how Everybot. So it's so I couldn't agree more with those guys that you definitely have to set your goals before the season starts as to what you desire to do.
Going off of like Everybot also bringing in like Robot in 3 days teams, how much should teams be looking at Robot in 3 days and Everybot? Obviously, Everybot comes out a little later, but how much should teams be looking at that on kickoff weekend and going into like week 1?
I think you should take every bit of data that's out there. Be mature about it and don't overreact to certain things and say, I saw this, therefore that. Inarguably, we need to copy it. But I mean, that's in one way, it's a giant extension of your own prototyping, if you just want to view it that way. And another way, obviously, it's these independent teams running their own strategies, and you can vet a lot of things looking at that. But yeah, take all the data you can for sure.
So I'm going to give 2 different opinions here. So the first opinion is like for me running a team, if I'm running 11-14 or if I'm running anyone else's team or I'm taking part in another team, and it's completely in line with what Adam's saying. Like it's just use it as an extension of your prototyping. Let them prototype things that you can't see, like test out some concepts and be like, oh, like we really want to try that out, try it ourselves, or we don't have the resources to prototype 7 different things, so they're going to handle a lot of it. And just use it as, it's just like doing research. Like when you're writing a paper, you go to the library, you pull out some books. Robot in 3 Days is like one of the books off the volume that you're looking at. There are others, and I feel that this opinion doesn't get represented enough, or it does get represented and then people shoot it down, but I think it's important. There are others who view the first robotics competition as like the most important part of the process is the creative design process. And some people feel that you as a team lose some value if you see other people's ideas first. And they think that it's important to brainstorm independently and do your own thing. I think every team's got to figure out what their own goals are, because we talked about goal setting and the whatnot. But I do see that sometimes Robot in 3 Days there might be an idea that never gets fully fleshed out because you're like, oh, well, I saw it didn't really work properly there. And I'll talk a little bit about the VEX Robotics competition, because like this is what happens in the VEX Robotics competition. And as someone who designed the games there for years, it was like, at some point I was just going to throw my hands up and just be like, this is crazy. Because as a game designer, I would be like, okay, well, I'm expecting to see these are the robots that we're going to see in Freedom Hall at the championship, like the best types of robots. And some of those robots never ever showed up. And it was just because so early on, the designs converged. Like just a couple teams would post a design really early of a certain type of scorer, and then everyone focused on that and they tried to make that more efficient. And that design would get to peak efficiency for the season, but there were other design approaches that just never got explored. And so if you think back to like 2015, and you look at the 1114 robot, which was pretty different than most robots that showed up that year. If we had laser focused on some of the early Robot in 3 Days designs and didn't, mess around with our own weirdness, we never would have gotten to that point. In 2008, the best 1114 robot ever. If there was Robot in 3 Days back then, it would not have had a design like ours. And we could have just passed up on that and just made a normal elevator or whatever. And so you do miss the opportunity for some out-of-the-box craziness. Now, not every team should be trying out-of-the-box craziness. And some teams, but this just goes back, you have to kind of figure out what your real goals are and how much resources you have. But I do see, like, I'm all for it. I want to see everything. I want every bot to be in the first kit of parts. But I see how others out there are just kind of like, this isn't for us. But if it isn't, don't open it. You don't, like, everyone could do their own thing here. And so that's my TED talk on.
I think you can go, Lucien.
Oh, thanks, Austin. I think the Robonauts treat it more like Adam thinks of it, as it is a resource, but don't bring 40 gallons of ice cream into the facility on kickoff weekend, because everybody's going to eat all of the ice cream and they're all going to get sick. So don't just focus on Robot in 3 Days or Everybot or other things. And one of the key things I think you need to understand about the Robonauts reveal video and all these other videos that get taken is, if the video is not better than the robot, then the people have failed at making the video. So when you see a Robot in 3 Days that's super accurate, you can't just say, oh, I saw it on the internet, they made 5 out of 5. That's got to be the shooter, because that's probably not the shooter. It probably took them 40 takes. And when they got 5 out of 5, they're like, woohoo, we can go home tonight. Let's post that video. So,
right. And don't be discouraged by these videos. Because so often teams are just like, oh, well, we're never going to do that. And it's just like, okay, well, just calm down here. I even remember in 2017, we saw 1114. We saw a video of one team shooter. And I'm not going to name them. And we're just like, okay, we're not even close to that accurate. Right now, we're like about a 60% accurate shooter. Like, well, this just, what are we doing? And we wrote that team and like, hey, like, do you have any advice for us on, like, tuning our shooter? Like, what are you doing? Whatever. And then they're like, oh, well, no, you guys are like the experts at tuning shooters. Like, do you have any advice for us? No, like, we're like, seriously, we can't shoot anything like that video. And they're like, we can't shoot anything like that video either. Like, like, so it was like, and the season came and, we ended up being a considerably better shooter than that team, who ended up, not taking that shooter off at some point. So it's like, you got to be careful when you watch these videos, like, be inspired by them, but understand, the what's what of everything.
To pivot this to a
think-
question, I assume it's coming about making list on Kickoff of a robot that needs to do way more things that it actually needs to do, and then kind of bring it back to videos. Every year when I was with 973 and the 118 video would drop, and the robot does 57 things, and you all agreed you only need to do 7, and the kids are just shitting their pants. The kids are freaking out. So like, there's no way we can compete with that robot. We would do the same ritual every year of like, hey, 118 is a great team, a lot of good people on it. And I hate to do them dirty like this, but let's take last year's reveal video and look at their first qual match and just look at the delta here a little bit, because you're making the video. Obviously, you're going to make it look incredible. And they're still really good in their first qual match, but like no one has ever beat a 118 reveal video robot. Like those are undefeated. It's the best robot in first every single year, hands down. And to bring this back actually to the pertinent point, you don't need to do a million things with your robot on that list you make kickoff day. Even though it feels like that, but if you actually go back and look at the last decade, you probably made a shall list that is longer than what was necessary to be competitive, even at the high level, every year out of those 10 years.
I just want to add.
10, I would agree, Adam.
I'll just add on there in terms of discouraging videos. I think that, the new thing now is to see the Citrus Circuits auto heavily censored autonomous video every year, and some teams are like, oh man, we got to do more in auto. We got to do more in auto. Other teams are just like, oh well, we're done. It's over. The season's done. I'm like, look at that, like knocked over my artwork here. But, I'll deal with that later. But it's understand that video is video, and understand that these teams. You don't have to be at a 4-cube auto level to be successful. Just doing your 1 cube in auto is super, super huge and really, really good. And so don't be discouraged that you can't hit that.
Well, on that, Karthik, I don't know if I should probably be saying this, but that auto, even though it worked perfectly that time we run it, it didn't work. Or the 5 times before it didn't work. And I think that everyone here, everyone who has a lot of experience kind of realizes that teams, I think like everyone's saying here, is that it's really important for those teams that are these videos as to what the level of competition is. These videos aren't the proper gauge. And I think also, at least for me personally, Robot in 3 days, I see a video and I now know what a lot of teams are going to just immediately copy. And so I can use this as a gauge to what the medium robot capabilities will, because I then know that teams that are just going to say, that works, I'm going to improve that, and they're going to do something similar. And so these minimum competitive concepts, what how we view what a medium robot is going to be, because we now know that there's going to be teams that see that working and say, well, ours didn't work as well as this video, and so we need to switch, because that's what a lot of teams do. So if you're ever looking to gauge competition, look at these videos, because you now know that a lot of people are going to change their ideas to copy it.
Yeah, one more point down this line. I think Robonauts had a transition from mentors that were smart to students that were smart about, I would say, about 8 or 9 years ago. So we would go through Kickoff, we would see a game, and we would say, oh, this is how you would shoot a ball. This is how you would do this or that. Oh, look at this break that we have on the 2001 robot. And then all of these students started doing Vex, and they started coming in, and they started having ideas that were just mind-blowing. That was the mentors are like, what? Double reverse 4-bar, this and that. And I will tell you, our robots, if they would have been designed by mentors the last say 5 or 6 years, they would be nowhere near what they are with what experience these students have come up with in the VEX program and FTC, but for us, primarily VEX.
Yeah, so it looks like we've kind of finished our topic on the Robot in 3 Days team. So kind of a harsh pivot off of this, but going into the 2021 season, it's obviously going to look a lot different than basically any season past, just because of the unique circumstances. So how should people be approaching this season? And especially with there may be in-person competition, there probably won't be, at least initially. So how should teams go into this season and prepare for the upcoming kickoff?
So I want to start this one off because I think that the number one there's like one priority that's overarching that we all have to be taking into account, and it's public health, and it's not just the health of our team and our teammates and our families, but our communities. We're all in this together, and if we want this pandemic to end, everyone's part. So whatever your team does, and like, man, I don't know if you're going to find anyone that loves robots more than this panel. Like, we love this stuff. We want to be doing it. We want to be active. We want to be engaging with our teammates. We want to, be right in there, building robots and whatever. But we just all need to dial it back and really follow like the top public health officials in our communities and follow their guidance. And so if it means that we can't do everything that we want to do, that's what we're going to have to do. And, First has done a great job of coming up with a bunch of virtual options for teams this year, with like infinite recharge at home, the game design challenge, which I mean, like if you love breaking out a game at kickoff, game design challenge is like the reverse of it. You're going to have to design a game that's going to be broken down by others, and the innovation challenge presented by Qualcomm. This is like all good stuff that can be done virtually. And I can't say I know what it's like to be a student who, lost their junior year of FIRST Robotics and is going to lose possibly what they expect for FIRST Robotics in their senior year. I can't, I can't say that I relate, and it's probably insulting of me to even imply that I could. But I just do want to say that we need to make these sacrifices for everyone, and like for like my parents and my aunties and uncles, to make sure that they are safe and okay. And so it's going to be hard, and there's going to be some adjusting, but I know we can make the best of it. Like, this community is like super smart and like always does make the best of things. But I just really wanted to get that out there.
Yeah. So if you're looking at this and it's how you want to define your goals that year for your team, right? And so we don't know what competition is going to look like at all. Things might be able to meet in person with no crowds, maybe not. And so I want to think similar to my rules for when we got rid of BAT, where whatever you think you can do, you're doing less. So if you think, yeah, because I have time, I'm going to be able to add mechanisms, or I'm going to be able to be a little bit more complicated, realistically, you can't. And so similar to this, where I'm stuck at home, I'm going to have extra time in CAD, I'm going to be able to do all these awesome mechanisms. No, you can't. So from a different perspective, instead of from a public health perspective, that's priority number one. But from just even a, you don't want to overcome things beyond, what you can realistically do. That being said, you could also use this time knowing that this is an e-reason to try things. And if you want to use this as almost a learning, I think a really good opportunity where you can things that you really don't have experience with, so you can get that. Try to almost treat this as a long off season and try to just get the most out of working with the robots as you can.
Real quick, I would like to double what Karthik said. So to everyone who's out there, there's different situations in different states and different countries. Texas is different than Canada, is different than Michigan. But everyone, and I'm gonna be Father Junkin here for a second and say, look, students and mentor, let me say it to mentors and students. The leadership on your team, the mentors are trying to juggle a lot of difficult things. Keep everybody safe, have a satisfying year. Don't go against their dictates. And I call it dictates specifically as to they're making the rules and you need to follow the rules. You don't need to be sneaking off and being like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. No, we don't know exactly what we're talking about, but we're being uber conservative to try to keep the team healthy and try to do our obligation to the country, to keep the highest priority, and that's that every family member goes home to their family nice and healthy at the end of the day. So I would double and triple what these guys are saying. And with that said, I'll say one more thing. The Robonauts attitude is that we are trying to use all of this online resources and the like to make our team better for things that will last forever. Like we did rookie interviews this year, all online. We're not going to make the rookies all come to one facility anymore because it's so convenient for the parents to just say, hey, we're gonna do a Zoom call and we're gonna interview the students there, and the parents don't have to worry about rushing their kid up to the school or whatever. So that's our attitude towards it.
I'll just pile on and reiterate the public health concerns. There's a good chance we don't get a season at all, and if that's the right decision, then that's rough, but that's what we got to run with. If you're in one of the states or areas that will get to compete, I guess the practical advice I would give is teams usually chronically under practice, under tune, under program. Resist the temptation to say we've got more time and make a new robot, and just take the robot you have, practice it, do a better autonomous, maybe make your intake a little better or something that's in place on that. But I would not re-architect it or make new systems or machine a lot of parts. I would just practice and program and practice that skill set, and that'll carry over for years forward for sure.
Yeah, and first teams, the best first teams are good because we push the boundaries of the rules, and we push and we push and we push, and we push on game rules, and we push on safety rules, and that's all well and good when it's a game, but when it comes to this stuff, like if there are actual competitions, like there's no let's jam an extra person in the pit and hope that no one notices. And there's no like, oh well, yeah, let's just take our mask off because it's a little bit easier. Like, no, like this is not an area where you push the boundaries. This is not like trying to get some extra juice out of your battery or whatever weird things that all these teams are doing, or like this is not let's try and come up with cheesecake so we can hang from the goal and then block the goals or something like that. Like that stuff's cool, but like messing around with public health is not.
Yeah. I think we're basically just about out of time on that. So please, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy. Good luck with whatever happens for the rest of the season. Yeah, I think we had a couple of really good discussions on really important points. Good luck to everyone watching and everyone on the panel. And this has been a great time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin, for moderating. Everyone at the Capital City Classic for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Kevin. Y'all have a great weekend, great year.